how is moral injury similar to and different from PTSD? That's created some confusion, and people are really trying to tease out the similarities and differences between these two
Hmm.
different types of suffering. So let me just share with you the definition for PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, that comes from the Mayo Clinic. PTSD is a mental health condition that's caused by an extremely stressful or terrifying event, either being part of it or witnessing it. And then the symptoms of PTSD may include flashbacks, nightmares, severe anxiety, or uncontrollable thoughts about the event. Okay, so what I want to invite you to do, listeners, and I'm not inventing this. This is something that the Huffington Post already did years ago. They considered PTSD and moral injury as a kind of Venn diagram with PTSD here and moral injury here, and then a circle that shows what is shared, and then the two
Yeah.
outside circles
Right.
showing what is not shared.
Right.
Um, all right, so um, let me just mention a few things about this because there are similarities and there are differences. For one thing, there are some conceptual distinctions. Um, PTSD generally involves a kind of persistent re-experiencing of the traumatic event. Moral injury may or may not incorporate that kind of insistent re-experiencing.
Hmm.
Um, PTSD involves people in avoiding trauma-related stimuli following the trauma. Again, moral injury may or may not. PTSD usually involves fear, and that, again, it may or may not be a factor in moral injury. Um, Researchers are seeing that PTSD and moral injury really take place in different parts of the brain.
Hmm.
PTSD involves the amygdala, an overactive amygdala. And what we see is the sparking of the fight or flight reactions with PTSD. But moral injury takes place more in the prefrontal cortex, where moral thinking occurs. So there may even be different parts of the brain that are really triggered by these different experiences. There may be an overlap of symptoms and feeling. So, for instance, both PTSD and moral injury may bring about the experience of anger, depression, anxiety, insomnia, nightmares, self-medication with alcohol or drugs. But again, PTSD tends to really grow out of, or the primary experience tends to be this startle reflex, memory loss, fear, and flashbacks. Whereas moral injury involves, again, all of those moral feelings that we mentioned at the beginning. And just to kind of add to that list, moral injury is about the experience of sorrow and grief, regret, shame, and alienation. Okay. It's interesting to me that in the work that I am now doing, interviewing veterans in a more in-depth way, some veterans that I'm interviewing almost think of PTSD and moral injury as somewhat interchangeable, while others really experience them very differently. I will say that most of the veterans that I am interviewing who are living with moral injury also have experienced PTSD.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Often tend to go together.